Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Nadira binti Ahmad Sawawi and my metric number is A24A3398. First of all, I will present the introduction of Case Study 1 and Case Study 2. For Case Study 1, the global economy will likely bring uncertainty to Malaysia's economy in 2025. But private consumption and consumer spending could be the primary forces of economic growth. Industry giants like Maidin, Apple, and Harvey Norman are making their way to Malaysia as the tourism and employment sectors are recovering and commodity prices are improving. For case study 2, Malaysia is suffering from issues of growing government debt, fiscal deficits, high inflation, and living cost. The Socio-Economic Research Centre, SARC, recommended the government to adopt a credible fiscal reduction plan to shore up the country's financial stability. The reintroduction of the GST, rationalization of subsidies, and fiscal transparency are crucial measures to guarantee sustainable economic growth in the future.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Wana Farhani binti Zainuddin. My metric number is A24A3793 and I will present question 1 for case study 1 which focuses on theory and the aggregate demand graph. First, private consumption refers to household spending on goods and services to satisfy daily needs and wants. For example, include spending on food, clothing, transportation, education, healthcare and entertainment. Private consumption is an important component of aggregate demand because it contributes significantly to economic activities in a country. Next, national income is the total income earned by individuals and business within a country during a certain period. It includes wages, rent, interest, and profit. National income is important because it reflects the economic performance and living standard of a country. There is a close relationship between private consumption and national income. When national income increase, consumers have higher purchasing power and disposable income. As a result, people tend to spend more on goods and services. This will increase private consumption and eventually increase the aggregate demand. However, when national income decrease, consumers may reduce their spending due to lower income levels. For the aggregate demand, or we call it as AD graph, the y-axis represent the price level while the x-axis represent the real GDP or real output. The AD curve slope downward from left to right, showing the inverse relationship between price level and output. When private consumption increase, the AD curve shift to the right. This leads to the higher output, more employment and opportunities, and economic growth. Therefore, private consumption plays an important role in improving the economy. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Asma Amirah binti Arifin. My metric number is A24A3151. Now I will present the calculation part where we need to calculate the national income and disposable income based on the data given. First, for part A, national income, we calculate the gross domestic product or GDP using the expenditure approach formula, where C represents personal consumption expenditure, I is net private domestic investment, G is government consumption and investment, while X minus M represent export minus import. So we substitute the values given. Personal consumption expenditure is 250 billion, investment is 100 billion, government spending is 75 billion, export are 60 billion and import are 50 billion. After calculating, the GDP is 435 billion ringgit. Next, we deduct depreciation of 50 billion to obtain net domestic product, which become 385 billion ringgit. Then we adjust indirect tax and subsidies. We subtract indirect tax of 20 billion and add subsidies of 5 billion, giving us 370 billion ringgit. After that, we calculate net factory income from abroad by subtracting payment of factory income abroad from receipt of factory income from abroad. So, the result is -1 billion. Finally, we add the net factory income from abroad to 370 billion. Therefore, the national income is 369 billion ringgit. Next, we calculate disposable income. First, we determine personal income using this calculation. National income minus corporate tax and social insurance payment, then plus transfer payment and dividends. So, 369 billion minus 45 billion minus 35 billion plus 15 billion plus 4 billion gives us 308 billion ringgit. Next, we deduct personal income tax of 60 billion from the personal income. So 308 minus 60 equals to 248 billion ringgit. Therefore, the disposable income is 248 billion ringgit.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nur Amira Ashiki binti Muhammad Nazman and my metric number is A2483050. So I can explain how the private consumption will influence the aggregate demand and aggregate supply. First, I can explain about aggregate demand. Is a private consumption is a key component in the functioning of national income. This is because users who spend more on their daily necessities such as needs and wants, as shown by the 10% increase in football at Maidan store, which has exceeded pre-COVID-19 levels, will lead to a high increase in the aggregate. However, the steep increase in household spending will cause an upward shift in the aggregate demand curve to move to the right. After that, about aggregate of supply is shown an increase in private usage that could signal to firm to increase high quality production for them. For example, Maidan companies needs to make a plan to add more new branches by collaborating with other companies such as Apple and Harvey Norman who want to open branch in Malaysia. This can show a good increase in the firm's investment so that this company's investment will become stable and positive. However, the economy adjusts to the change in government spending is one of the components of aggregate demand because the government spend on healthcare and education such as free vaccination injection will continue to directly increase aggregate demand. So this case have multiple effects such as first round expenditure borne by the government will be paid to contractors, suppliers, workers and institutions that provide service to healthcare and education. This is an income borne by the government to those parties, and the second round and beyond is for recipients of this income. They need to spend a portion of their new income on consumption expenditure, which depends on the marginal propensity to consume or MPC, because their spending will become income for other such as expenditure that trigger to the subsequent consumption round. So for adjustment, the new balance is a process will continue until the economy reaches a level of equilibrium with the new national income. If the economy is at full employment, this increase will affect national income and production and will also impact the rise in employment level because firms will need more labor to meet increased demand for production. Therefore, in short, the conclusion is that a stable economy level will determine all alike balance, that is from the original balance to a new higher balance, whereby a country's income level will increase because of the multiple effect generated from the initial government expenditure. That's all for case study 1. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Shazani binti Imam Rashidi and my metric number was A2480166. So today I will explain the definitions and goals of fiscal policy based on our case study 2. So first of all, fiscal policy is referred to the government's strategy that it is managing the economy through the government's spending and also taxations. So by adjusting spending and taxes, the government is actually able to influence the aggregate demands and maintain the economic stability and also control the country's financial conditions. That's why there's 4 main goals of fiscal policy that the government wants. And the first goal is actually budget deficit reductions, which is the government tries to control excessive spending so that the national debt does not continue to increase. So the second goal is actually national financial stability by managing debt carefully. The government can maintain investor confidence and also ensure the economy is remain stable. So the third one is economic growth, which is the government's increase the development, spending and investment project to stimulate gross domestic product or GDP and create more economic activity. And the lastly, fiscal policies also aims to achieve a price stability. This means controlling inflation so that the cost of living does not become too high for the public. So the next one, I will explain to you guys the factors that influence the effectiveness of a fiscal policy. So the effectiveness of a fiscal policy actually depends heavily on the public expectations and reactions. Why I say that? Because first, how households is actually play an important role. If people expect taxes is to increase in the future, they may choose to save more money instead of spending. So as a result, consumer demand is actually decreased, and the impacts of fiscal policies will become more weaker. So the second one is actually a business. Are also affected by the expectation. Why I say like that is it is because if companies are predicting an economy become slow down, they may delay the investment, reduce productions, also avoid to hiring more workers to work. So this is actually can slow down the economic growth in our country. And the third one is actually investor confidence. Why I say like that is because when the government debt is become too high, investors actually may lose confidence in the economy. So these reasons actually can reduce the investment activities and affect the financial stability for our country. So, and the lastly is actually inflations that can also influence a fiscal policy effectiveness. Why I told you guys like that is because if people expect the prices to rise continuously, they actually may become more careful with spending, causing a demand in the economy to decrease.
Hello, my name is Monisha Wani Saravanan and my metric number is A2483552. For question A, the economy is not in equilibrium because total leakage are greater than total injections. Current national income is Rm 200 billion while the equilibrium income is only Rm 150 billion. This means the economy will contract if the government takes no action. For part B, the multiplier value is 5 because the MPC is 0.8. To achieve the full employment income of Rm 700 billion, the government needs to increase spending by Rm 110 billion using expansionary fiscal policy. This policy helps increase aggregate demand and economic growth. For part C, when government expenditure increased by Rm 30 billion, national income increases through the multiplier effect. The new equilibrium income becomes Rm 300 billion. Consumption rises to Rm 240 billion and saving becomes Rm 30 billion. Lastly, for part D, investment increases from Rm 30 billion to Rm 100 billion. With the multiplier effect, national income increased by Rm 350 billion, making the new equilibrium income Rm 500 billion. This shows that higher investment can boost production, employment, and economic growth.
Good morning everyone, my name is Nurul Syafiqah Oni binti Subaha. Today I will present the factors affecting economic growth based on the article. The first factor is inflation. Inflation increases the prices of goods and services. When prices rise, consumers have less purchasing power and reduce their spending. Businesses also face higher costs which can slow down economic growth. The second factor is moderating exports. When demand from foreign countries decreases, export sales and business profit will also decrease. This reduces production activities and affects national income growth. Next is the high cost of living. People need to spend more money on necessities such as food and transportation. As a result, consumers reduce unnecessary spending, causing business sales and the economic activities to weaken. Lastly, interest rate hikes can affect economic growth because borrowing becomes more expensive. Consumers and businesses may reduce loans and investments, which slow down spending and overall economic growth. Good day, everyone. So for conclusion, in case study 1, private consumption plays an important role in Malaysia's economic growth. When consumers spend more, aggregate demand increases and businesses are encouraged to expand their production and outlets. This also creates more job opportunities and increases national income. Besides that, government spending on healthcare and education helps stimulate the economy through the multiplier effect. Therefore, both private consumption and government expenditure contribute positively to Malaysia's economic stability and growth. For case study 2, fiscal policy is important to maintain economic stability and sustainable growth. The government must manage fiscal deficits, national debt, and inflation carefully to maintain public and investor confidence. In addition, factors such as high living costs, inflation, and higher interest rates can reduce consumer spending and business investment, which may slow economic growth. Therefore, effective fiscal management is necessary to achieve long-term economic stability and improve the well-being of society.